there's someone you wish you'd never met. Or maybe there's someone in your loved one's life. And you say, I wish they had never met that person. Why is that? Well, I think most of us understand that person, whoever popped into your head right then, has had a net negative effect on your life. The influence that they brought was a bad thing. Walking away from that situation, you'd say, this person did not do me well. They hurt the person that I love. They did not further them down that path. See, all of us, to a certain extent, have this general definition already operating, that a good friend is someone who has a positive net effect on your life. That their influence, that they walk with, is a good thing. And when someone has a net negative effect on your life, you'd say, well, that person's a bad friend. At the end of the day, as much fun as we had, they're a bad friend. So this definition of what a good friend is, what a bad friend is, what if, since we're all operating with that, and we all use it to a certain extent, what if it's a little bit off? What if we're not actually using it exactly as we should? This morning, we're going to be looking at two passages out of Hebrews. And as we get there and look at that, I think you're going to see that it describes pretty well what a good friend does. Now, the book of Hebrews, if you're not familiar, it's a beautiful book. It's wonderful. What it does is he writes this letter to Hebrews. The author writes to Hebrews, so these would be, Israelites, people who come from the Jewish faith. And they understand the Old Testament. They understand the old promises. They understand the law. They understand these things that God started, the temple, Moses. And he takes that and he draws the dots to Jesus. And he says, since you're following Jesus now, let me show you how he completes these things. These deep, beautiful, meaningful doctrines, like really complex, some of them. And then in between there, he has these like very serious, dangerous warnings. But you need to be careful about this. But this will ruin you. This is a problem. And then, here and there, are these specific teachings about friendship. Isn't that interesting? Deep, complex, theological truths. Dangerous, serious warnings. And in that letter, written to people who are being persecuted, who have tough lives, about things that will root them down, about things they need to watch out for, he says also, let me take a minute to describe what good community is, what a good friend is. I think that's telling. I think that's meaningful, that interspersed in these deep things, in these serious things, he takes the time to talk about friends. That's worth paying attention to. Why? Because friendship, it isn't just a nice idea. It's essential. Because a good friend helps you hold on to God. And a bad friend will help you walk away from him. Look at Hebrews with me. Chapter 3, he says this, see to it, brothers and sisters, that none of you has a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God. But encourage one another daily, as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. And then chapters later, in chapter 10, he says, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess. For he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Now, I want to point out a logical progression here. I think he has a reason for saying these things in the way he does. He says that sin is deceitful. This is what that means. When you have sin and you allow it to grab a hold of your mind, you allow it a foothold in your emotions, you allow it a foothold on your logic or your self-worth or your hope, it will wreak havoc. It will deceive you. It will become a primary way in which you think about things. It will be the lens you look through. It will start whispering things to you. And often that's how it comes. The deception is not usually a shout, it's a whisper. It's subtle. It's slow. And you know this. I want you to think about the last sort of spiral you had. Right? Remember the last sort of downward spiral. Maybe it was anxiety, or it was anger, or it was the depressive tendencies, or it could be a number of things. But the spiral that you tend to kind of trip down. And I want you to go back to that place, and the moment it's happening, most of the time, I think for most of us, we recognize this is more of a reaction than I should be having, right? But somehow that doesn't change the reaction that you are having. And usually there's a very helpful person standing next to you telling you to calm down with your reaction. That's usually my role. I get to help people call me, and I'm like, well, first, calm down, all right? Why is it spiraling? Why, in the moment when you recognize this isn't how it should be happening, this isn't I know I'm overreacting, I know I'm putting more into this than I should. There's a number of reasons that could be happening, but one of them is that we often are listening to sin in the moment. That sin has deceived us into thinking this is the truth. And it disrupts our processing. It disrupts the way we logic. It disrupts the way we view the world. So now, instead of the truth that I should be holding on to, that hope, it steals that away from me, and I'm going to follow this now. I have this lie to live in now. And when I hold on to that lie, it starts flowing its own logic. Well, God must not be able to help me. Right? I'm thinking this way. I'm broken down this way. So if I follow this out, I guess it's up to me. Now, I know that this hope would tell me that things are bigger, that God has a plan, that He's doing things, that I can't see everything and know everything. But that's not what I'm listening to right now. I've been deceived into this little corner over here, and over here, I guess I have to do it. And so then we logic ourselves, guess what, into more sin. So I guess because I'm alone, and I guess I have no hope, I have to do it myself. And so I lie, or I steal, or I scheme, or I manipulate, or I run, or I fight, or whatever it is. We give ourselves the excuse to fall into it. So follow this with me. Follow this logic. The sin comes in, it deceives, and then once we're there, he says here that it hardens the heart. Once we're there, it hardens it. I don't want to listen anymore. I don't really want to learn anymore. I don't really want to be corrected. Instead, I'm just going to double down. Isn't that how sin works? Right? Think about like the hidden sins. Right? It's just a little bit. It's a little bit of sin, and then it's a little bit of deceive. Then it's a little bit more, and then it's a little bit more hardening to the point where, yeah, I know I shouldn't. In fact, if my social sort of Christian community knew about it, I would probably be ashamed about it, but I kind of don't feel bad anymore. I've just kind of been hardened to the fact that this is something that shouldn't exist. I'm just going to be here now. As he puts it, we hold on to this hope, or else we turn away from the living God. That's what he's talking about here. Not that we're losing salvation. That's not what he's discussing in the moment. You can't lose salvation once you're secure in Christ, but what he's talking about is losing our fellowship with God, losing the joy we could have, losing the peace and the friendship to experience that in the moment. We set that down and we say, I don't really care about that right now. I've been deceived, and so I'm thinking this way, and as I think this way, it hardens me, and then I'm going to turn into this. I'm going to live into this. This is going to be a major influence on my life. So there's a massive danger here, and we don't want to get there. Nobody here starts out saying, yeah, I'd love to spiral down and ruin my life. Nobody begins there. So we all have this potential, this danger. And do you know what's fascinating here? The answer he provides for that. It's not read your Bible more. It's not wake up 5 minutes earlier. Or it's not change your diet a little bit. The answer he provides is community. The solution is the friends. Right? He follows up with all these verbs. Encourage one another daily. How often is that? Well, that'd be every day, Pastor. daily spur one another on to good works. What would it take to do that? Well, I'd need to know what's going on in your life. You'd need to know what's going on in my life. I need to understand kind of your decision making and where you're going. I need to help you think through things. Now, that's a lot of time, isn't it? He says, don't stop meeting together. These are all verbs that you have to come together. His answer is the community of Jesus-loving friends. It will keep you from doing this. It will protect you from falling into that. Why? Because lies come from your own sin. But truth comes from friends. Your sin will lie to you. Every time. Your heart will get discouraged. You need a good friend to lift you up. Your heart will get distracted. You need a good friend to put you back. Your heart will fall in love with the wrong things. You need a good friend to challenge it. You need these friends because friends come together. Good friends come and they say things like, let's figure this out together. They say, what is Jesus doing right now? They'd say, let's work on this. Let's follow Jesus together. Let's take some steps. I'm going to call you back next week at this time, and we're going to talk about this again. Those are the things good friends do. And I wonder if the reason that you say, I wish I never met that person, is because they functionally did the opposite. That in your heart, you already know, that's the kind of friends that I want and need. And the reason you reject or resent those people is because functionally, they said, how can we ruin our lives together? Right? You might have had a lot of fun doing it. Might be some crazy stories that came out of it. But really, the net result was a negative, how can we walk further down this path? And the reason you wish that person didn't come into your loved one's life is because you look at their life and you say, I wish this had never happened. I wish they hadn't been influenced in this way. I wish they hadn't been pushed the wrong direction, led the wrong direction. See, your community, your people, your friends are going to have profound impact on your life. Your heart is not stagnant. You need to know that. It's constantly going. It's moving. It's moving towards something. And if you have influence around you pulling you the wrong direction, it will go that direction. It will have profound impact on your life, who you surround yourself with. Proverbs puts it this way: do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get ensnared. You've been ensnared? Someone led you into snares? The verses sort of cast a vision of what we should see a friend as. Someone who's helping, guiding, protecting even at times. Walking with you. See, a good friend is good for you. A good friend is good for you. There's a net positive effect on your heart, on your life, where you're going, your direction. And listen, it's a humbling reality that we all need friends. And it's equally an inescapable reality that we all need friends. We need good friends. Left to our own, we just crumble. Listen, our sin is just so convincing. You have convinced yourselves of more lies than anyone else in your life. And it's sometimes the same lie in the row. Just doop, doop, doop. You are a sucker for yourself. We need people outside of us to look in. A good friend is good for you. Proverbs also puts it this way: the righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. Or again, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. This is not how most people look at friendship. And this is not how most people look for friendship. See, because really what this is saying is that the defining trait that you need in a friend is their love of Jesus. Because that's going to determine their direction. And when you're with them, your direction will be determined by the direction y'all are headed together. But that's not how most of us approach friendship. Most of us have this idea of friendship as, like a carbon copy of ourselves. I want this person to kind of think like me and have the same weaknesses as me and have the same strengths as me, and we can just celebrate each other together. And I'm not really sure why we're convinced of that. It's a bad view of friendship. And I know I've lost some of you already because you think, no thanks. I've tried the friendship thing, and I've been hurt too much, and I got too tired, and they didn't show up, and I needed, and they weren't there, and so I'm done. Proverbs has a question about that. He says, many claim to have unfailing love, but a faithful person who can find? And we do sit with that. We feel that. And a past full of hurt, a past full of bad friendships will sort of arrive you at this sense of hopelessness. Like, well, how could I even start? Friendship. There are bad friendships out there. And looking at it, I think I see kind of two primary categories of bad friendships. Friendships that hurt us. The first is that a friendship would be defined by control, and the second would be a friendship defined by silence. If you have a friendship defined by control, someone has used trust to leverage manipulation. They say, because you trust me, I'm going to leverage that to make you do what I want. Because we have a relationship that's already standing, I'm going to use that to get you to do what I want. I'm going to use you to meet my needs. And you get pulled into things, sometimes subtly. And you tolerate things that you normally wouldn't tolerate. Why? Well, because I love them. And you get brought into doing things that historically you wouldn't have done. And you go, I don't know how I got here. And you feel stuck and you feel trapped. You feel like you have no choice. You feel pressure. You have this sense that, like, well, if I don't do this, if I don't follow through, they're going to, what? Punish you. They're going to withhold something from you. That's manipulation. That's a manipulation dynamic. That is someone who's using control to get you under. That's not working for your good. That's not helping you. It's controlling to get what they want from you. And if you've experienced this, you're pretty wary of other relationships. This is how cults are formed, right? In its most extreme. It's also how manipulative, aggressive, unhealthy romantic relationships are formed. That's a foundation for it. Most times a control dynamic. It can happen in those extremes, but it also just happens in subtler ways. Well, I better not call them out because then they're going to blow up at me. That's a bad deal right there. That's a red flag. We have some discussion we need to have. Second common bad friendship is a friendship defined by silence. Now, this one's tricky. This one's tricky because it can appear peaceful. In fact, it can be fun. It can appear like it's a great thing, but it's not. It's avoidance, primarily. It's a philosophy. I won't call you out if you won't call me out. These are the places where we throw around words like tolerance and no judgment. Accept me as I am. Sort of weaponize those to establish a place where there's no accountability. We weaponize those to establish, no, you're not allowed to challenge me. We're not going to chase truth together. We're just going to have comfort. But deep down, really, it's a lot more sinister than just comfort. It's a make me feel better about my sin by not talking about your own sin. I'll make you feel better by not bringing up my stuff. And together we can just kind of have an unaccountability group. Good friends are good for you. And follow me on this. Follow me on this next logical leap. Bad friend is bad for you. I get paid for this. Good friend is good for you. A bad friend is bad for you. Now, a good friendship is how we form community at all. Think about the formation of community. I'm friends with you. You're friends with them. They're friends with her. She's friends with me. And we have this web, a social web. And in that's the context in which transformation takes place. Community, we get pulled towards community. Not control, not silence. Control is about me. Silence is about you not seeing me. It's really more enablement, not love. And then from those things, we build community. That's why there's like bad communities out there. Like it's a bad community because it's founded on a bad thing. Okay, you can think about like a friendship defined by silence could be as life-crushing as a drug addiction community. Right, think about this. People form communities wherever they're at, and we have this commonality, and what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, we're just going to put up with this in each other, so then at least we have each other. Search for community, and we'll build it where we're at. It could be as ingrained or as life-altering as the LGBTQ community. What is that based on? A sense of acceptance, just as you are, tolerance. It's not about, don't challenge me on this, don't push me on this. This is what I'm going to do, and you have to accept me no matter what. That's the agreement. That's not love. Enablement at best. Accept me exactly how I am is not a loving thing. Because tell you what, I'm not as great as I should be. It could also be as poisonous and as soul-twisting as friends that gather to gossip. We have this little community, this little friendship built on something really terrible. And if I do it and you do it and we do it together, then we just kind of not call each other out on it. Good friends are good for you. Bad friends are bad for you. And I say that explicitly because a lot of people are like, yeah, they're a bad friend, but I don't think they're bad for me. No, they are. That relationship needs to change if it's going to be a good thing. The social web we form, it becomes the context in which God works to transform us. It's one of his primary ways. It's all through the scripture. You need transformation to happen in a community. Rarely is God working within your heart outside of a community of people. Think about it. When's the last time that you had a major breakthrough, a major growth spurt, and it just involved no other people? It doesn't happen. You're designed to be in community, and that's the context. You need, look, if you're going to follow the word, like you need people. How are you going to do all the one another commands? Love one another, be patient to one another, bear with one another. You can't do that alone. You need community. You need to sing together. You need to pray together. You need other people to pray over you. You need to pray over you need to serve people. We need each other for the context to be built where God says, I'm going to change you. He says, I want to change you. I'm going to change you, but it's going to happen in this community, in a context of these good relationships. That's the design. That's the design. Good friendships are good because they're based in love. Not enablement, not falsehood, not control, not manipulation, not what they can get from you, but in love, right? Last week we discussed how Jesus displayed like the best friendship that we could imagine because he was willing to die for his friends. That's the greatest display of love. And he says that's how love should be. That's the basis that friendship between you should exist. Love one another as I have loved you. That's the community that's built. And this love will protect one another. This love will pursue one another. This love will push on sensitive things because the gospel needs to go out further and the gospel needs to come into my heart deeper. That's what a good friend does to you. That's what a good presence in your life is for you. It's because actually God is working through other people to love you. Think about the people you're most thankful for. That looking back, you'd be like, oh, I'm so thankful they're in my life. Why? Because God worked through them to help you. There are people that you say, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for this person. I wouldn't be the person I am if it wasn't for that person. What is that? God's love working through them to love you well. That's the design. That's how he's built this to work. And that's why the love that we need won't be in a friendship defined by control. It won't be in a friendship defined by silence, because love doesn't put up with. Love doesn't manipulate. Love nurtures. It corrects, but it doesn't control. And a good friend loves you enough to challenge you, to challenge your thoughts, to tell you when you're wrong, to straighten you out. That's what a good friend does. So what does it look like to have these friendships? Well, last week we briefly talk through the 4 relationship convictions that sort of encapsulate what a healthy relationship would look like. Things that you have to hold on to. And one of them, it says, I'm worth knowing. The second would be, you are worth knowing. The third is that I accept the risk of trusting. And the fourth would be, I accept the work of growing. Because any relationship that we have would be undermined if I say, you know what, I'm really not worth knowing. So I'm going to pull myself out of this. Or it would become manipulative. It would become controlling and say, you know, you're not really worth knowing. You're just worth using. And if I am not going to accept the risk of trust, then we're not actually going to be able to build anything. And if either of us decides that we're not willing to grow, then things will become stagnant. And when you challenge me, I'll have to push you away because I don't want the work of that. These dynamics have to exist in order to build a relationship where it's a cycle. See, because if these 4 things are true, you can come to somebody and you can say, hey, this is going on. I see this in you and I want to help. And they would respond in kind. And what would actually happen is you know me more and now you can love me more. And I know you more and so I can love you more. And that's how a relationship deepens. It's through knowing, and then in the knowing, loving. That's the process by which relationships grow. So if you want to do that today, you do need to recalibrate your relationship a little bit. A lot of us, when we view friendships and we hear these things that the author of Hebrews is saying, like, well, you got to bear with one another and you have to daily encourage one another. And you go, how do I find a person that I can do this with? Right? We have this idea in our head, like, I don't know, some meet cute friendship thing where we're both at the grocery store and I reach for apples and you reach for apples and our hands touch. I'm like, you like apples? Me too. Friends, like, that's not how life works. How do we establish these things together in a way that my life, I can actually follow what he's saying? I want you to think of your relationships like concentric circles. The friendships that you have, and that innermost circle is really at most usually 1, 2, I don't know, maybe 3. But these people have this all-access pass to your heart. You ever gone somewhere with an all-access pass? Just like the toughest guy in the room, right? And you can walk up and be like, no, I'm allowed in here. Thanks very much. You get to go everywhere. You get all the access. There is no question too hard. There's no region that you're not allowed to go to. And ideally, this is what a spouse should be. That you can share your heart. That this is all, there's no questions off limit. There's no subjects that we're like, hey, we don't talk about that here. We know each other fully. And that's a lifetime journey, obviously. But the idea of having somebody there who's allowed. And a lot of us actually, as crazy as this sounds, a lot of us don't struggle with this part. That the concept of being fully known is something we pursue in our most close relationship. But there's a second circle. The second circle are people who should know you deeply. I'm going to call these VIP. They don't have the all access, all right? But they can get pretty far. They still get into the snack lounge, all right? There's some perks here. They can still ask all the hard questions. They can still speak truth deeply into your life. These are the friends that I say you give them a hunting license, right? Where they're like, hey, if you see something, feel free to take a shot. Like if you recognize something, see something, say something, like go for it. If you think there's something out there that needs to be taken down, here's a loaded rifle. You're allowed. It might get bloody, might hurt, but it's worth it. You are allowed. I'm licensing you to take those kind of shots in my life. And I actually think this is where we struggle the most. I think we struggle the most, which is why that you come to a point where you say, I feel like I don't have friends. I feel like people don't know me. And you have the some, right? You have the all access. And those would be okay but they have to love you. They're your spouse, or they're your best friend, or they're your brother or sister or whatever. They've always known you, and you've connected deeply, and so they're there. And so you can kind of excuse that and begin to say, but they don't have to love me. They don't have to love me actively. They have to love me functionally, like they have to be there by law, but they don't really know me. And you can begin to shut them out. I think that this second layer is the most underused one, that we struggle to let people in. We struggle to trust them to ask the hard questions. We struggle to build the time that it's going to take to build a relationship. Like think, do you have people? How many people in your life could ask you the hard questions and you wouldn't be like immediately offended or just close the door or not respond to the text or not? How many people could ask you the hard things? Hey, why are you worried about money all the time? Why don't you pray with your wife more? Why do you talk about your husband like that? Why aren't you more generous? Hey, it feels like this is kind of a really selfish thing for you to do. How is your sex life? Why aren't you growing in these things that you said you were going to grow in this year? How many people have that kind of access into your heart? Because it's not easy. It's not easy to build that. It takes time. It takes intentionality. It takes sitting and doing nothing together. Right? You kind of have to build that. That's where trust is going to happen, where we just kind of, I guess we're going to kind of be friends, all right? That's what's going to happen between you and me. We're going to be friends, so let's just go do the thing together and be friends. It takes a lot of time to risk it. You know what's interesting? I had a thought that if you were to take seriously the idea that the primary decision maker of friendship is somebody's love for Jesus, like imagine who your best friends would be. Because the primary thing that you need is somebody's love for Jesus. That's really it. It goes across demographic, it goes across social, economic boundaries, it goes across scheduling or career or family background. Change it, it doesn't matter. There was a study done years ago that they tried to figure out how people make friends. What's the biggest predictor of friendship? And they did all this study and they figured out it's actually proximity. That you're more likely to be friends with the person who is your neighbor or who you cross paths with at work or the person you interact with semi-regularly. You're way more likely to be friends with that person than if you were to find a carbon copy who lived outside of your like normal sphere of life. To cross paths with them regularly, I don't know if you caught that verse earlier where it says encourage each other daily. If you cross paths with them regularly, and especially if your hearts both love Jesus, that's the makings of a friend. Like that's really all it takes. Now that person might not become your best friend in the world, but like you can become very close with someone by both understanding, hey, I'm just trying to be more like Jesus. And I know you are, so can we do this together? It really doesn't need to be the best personality match and all the, are you a Labradoodle on your personality? Because I'm a Chihuahua and I just thought that. It doesn't matter. The third circle. Now, these are your friends. You're friendly to these people. You know them. You love them. You know their kids. You cross lives. I actually, this is really fascinating to me. There's actually a very formal way to decide who's in your friend circle. It's church membership. Isn't this weird? But think about it. Like, church membership is a formal agreement where I'm saying to you, I don't want us to have a friendship of silence. I don't want us to have a friendship of control. I want to pursue Jesus together, like in a formal way. Doesn't mean we need to eat breakfast together every morning. But what we're doing is we're saying together, our friendship, how we have a relationship, and the things we work on together should spread the gospel out. It's kind of weird, but it's like that's almost like he designed it to be the community that you're a part of. It's weird, huh? That God made this so that the community that you're a part of, that you commit to, would be the context for the transformation that you need. I think when you think about that, it means some of y'all need to become members. And it also means that some of y'all members need to get more friendly, all right? Having a circle that you're allowed to love and you're allowing a piece of your life, there's freedom in that. Freedom and growth. That's why we design small groups. That's why we design discipleship groups. That's why we have certain Bible studies work the way they do, is get together, cross paths, encourage one another, spur one another on, and pretty soon you're like, I kind of love these people. They kind of mean a lot to me. It's almost like God put us all together so that we would pursue him together. And then beyond that, there's your broadest circle, your larger community. And these people, you know and you begin to love, and as you know and love them, they begin to move their way up in circles. It's your mission field. It's I'm gonna strike out to be a good friend of the world here. And what's interesting is a lot of us have friends, even close friends, that aren't Christians. And I think after a long time, you begin to understand that there's a tension. That really, the decisions they make and the way they make those decisions are designed toward a goal that's different than yours. There might be commonalities of good life or joy, or they want to raise good kids or whatever it is. But really, at the heart of your life as a Christian to pursue Jesus will actually be at odds with somebody else's life pursuing self-pleasure. That's going to be the difference. And at some point in your Christian maturity, you realize, like, I can't actually give that person maybe as much access as I want. There's a hard thing where your faith can mature you out of friendships that aren't good for you. Doesn't mean you hate them, doesn't mean you disown them, but the influence that they have in your life may very much lessen. That's sort of a cost of maturity. And so look, I know we're all too busy to make friends, right? I get it. The business of busyness, I get it. We all play the game. The problem with that excuse is it's just not unique enough. This is not a unique enough excuse. Because even Paul, in this, he says, let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. And all the more as you see the day approaching. So if you had maybe a more unique excuse, Paul wouldn't call you out specifically. Well, okay, I think it's Paul. There's a whole debate about who wrote Hebrews. I think it's Paul, whatever. The author of Hebrews is calling you out. If you make a habit of this, you will be susceptible. If you make a habit of being absent, if you make a habit of creating distance between you and others, they won't have the insight to say, there's something going wrong in that heart of yours. I've noticed something. You'll be in danger. So friendship seems like it's extra, but it's not. God is saying it's a part of our design. Now, you don't need to be the biggest social butterfly and have a million friends and do all the parties. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having a heart that is at least clear to some who Jesus. Like they can see through it. They can see how it's working. And so do I. God designed us friends and to be friends. Start with Him. His relationship changes because listen, if you love Jesus, like you can't not love His family. That's not how it goes, right? You get married, guess what? You love in-laws. By law. You have to do it. No matter who they are. I want to point out something here that the passage ends with this urgent hope. And all the more as you see the day approaching. It's fascinating that He roots community, and the way you do community is like urgent hope. That you want to spend time well. Listen, Jesus is coming back. And if you want to not waste this time, if you want it to be optimized, if you want it to be multiplied, if you want to make the impact that's hosting, then you need to have the profound quality, an increase of life friends who love Jesus will bring. That's the truth. It's designed to work this way. If you want to be all you're supposed to be, it happens in the context of community, because that's where He transforms us. That's where His Spirit is able to pour into us from so many different directions. And in those friendships, we get to work with urgency. The day is coming. And together we're going to get way more done. Together we're going to see way more joy. Together we're going to picture what Jesus is doing and know it and experience in a way that we haven't been able to do outside the community that He's designed. And good friends. It's not hard, but we can so easily convince ourselves away from Jesus. will heal through community. That's what he does. He will teach us to trust in community, in friendship. He will strengthen us. He will teach us to fight. He will shape our hearts. He will do these things that we need because this is the resurrection life that we can live in. It's a picture done together. When Jesus died, he saved us to something. Saved us into his people. That's what it means. To be a Christian is to belong to his church. His church, his beloved. That's the Christian joy. That the resurrection power, only out of an old life, and putting me in a new life, done primarily in the context of good friendships. Good, Jesus-centered, Christ-exalting, Spirit-empowered friendships. That's the call. And the question comes down to if you want it. And I get that some people don't. Some people are just piddling around and they do the church thing because whatever, kind of social resume, whatever. But if you're actually interested in the growth, I just want you to count the cost of following Jesus into this. To be transparent with people and say, my heart is bleeding over here about this. And maybe you don't have answers for me, but I know that we can at least be together in this. To reach into other people's lives and say, I know you don't want to hear this, and this is going to be an uncomfortable conversation, but the way that you're living is sinful. And I love you too much to not say something. That's going to cost, but it brings so much. That's the joy. That's the place in which he's asking us to grow, to step forward in faith, and to do what it's going to cost. Just the time to build to the place where you can have that conversation. Do you trust God to bring more into your life through good friends? It's a question I'm going to leave you with.